What is up, everyone? We are live with the Mets post-game show. This is the first one that we've done in quite a while, honestly. I've been looking back at the other post-game shows that we've done. It's been a good month or so, or maybe a little bit less than a month, but glad to have both of my co-hosts. And yes, I've graduated Matt up to the co-host level. Hopefully, we can do a lot more of these shows going forward, the post-game lives, because I thoroughly enjoy them. But we just witnessed a disappointing game 3 against the Chicago White Sox. Obviously, the Mets won the series, but they dropped this game by a score of 6-2. Just want to shout out my guys real quick, Nelson and Matt. How are you guys doing? I know we got a lot to talk about today. We got about 45 to 50 minutes to talk about it, but Nelson, I'll start off with you. How are you doing? Let me know what the vibes are, and yeah, just what's up, man. First and foremost.
Yeah, not too much. Everything's good. The vibes for me are the same as they have been. I put my foot down on this team weeks ago. I haven't shifted. I won't shift until I see a drastic improvement, and I haven't seen it. Um, it's not a good baseball team. I don't believe they're a good baseball team. I don't believe anything's going to turn them into a good baseball team. So these glosses don't really mean anything to me. Oh well, big deal.
No, I feel that. I definitely feel that, and it's getting to that point. I mean, I've already been at that point as well. I've just been holding out pretty much false hope. But Matt, we haven't been able to sort of get with you and sort of get your thoughts on this team the last couple of weeks as well. Nelson and I have been doing the Interstate Mets report. We've been doing our own stuff a little bit too. I know you've been busy as well with everything that you got going on. So it's good to have you back as well. I want to start doing more of these post games, but first and foremost, just tell me, how you've been doing. What's your synopsis been? As a brief synopsis of this team so far, and especially at this point following this game right now.
Um, yeah, I mean, similar to Nelson, it's frustrating. There's no one single person to point to here. Like, it's just all around. It's awful. What's the word I'm looking for? Underachieving, I guess. Beyond the payroll, there's like tremendous talent on this team. Like that's something that's indeniable, right? Their record is a reflection of how bad they are, and I agree with that. But like, there's no reason. It reminds me a little bit of 2021 when they kind of fell off that cliff. Although the talent wasn't totally there in 2021. Um, like it doesn't make sense to me how a guy who won the batting title last year can barely put a ball in play. Like, just like doesn't know how to do that. Pete Alonso starts off the season so hot, and I mean the blunder today, like, that sucks. But overall, I'm much more concerned with, like, he's batting like what 130 this month, or in his last whatever it is 60 at bat. Like, it just it it's so frustrating because, I mean, ultimately, like, I guess when you really look back at this season, had the pitching somewhat panned out, like, we're not in this position. I mean, we're probably not in first, right? The Braves are like the best team we've seen in God knows how long. But I think ultimately, like, when you really look at this, I mean, Buck was a disaster. Epler's made his mistakes, but beyond that, if Scherzer and Verlander kind of did their job, like, we wouldn't be here right now, and that really sucks. That really sucks. So that's basically where I'm at. The one thing that I differ on with most people, like, I think this year's a wash. I think we pretty much all know that. Like, to give up on next year or the future, to me, is crazy. So I guess we'll get into that kind of later. But like, that's the one silver lining with this, is that, like, with Cohen's money, with the talent that's coming up, via Syracuse and Binghamton, like, there is hope going forward. So that's kind of a silver lining. And it did seem like they had a nice draft. I know, Nelson, you went much more into depth on that than I did. Than I did. So, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. We'll definitely get into some of the deadline talk. We'll get into our perspectives on that. Just want to shout out Talking Mets with Rob. Obviously, we do the Mets Roundtable podcast. Nelson and I are on the Mets Roundtable podcast with him. Also does the Shea Bridge show with Talking Mets with Hayden. Shout out him for tuning into the stream. Says, "What's up, guys?" Also lost a golden opportunity today to gain a game on the Phils because they had dropped their game to the Brewers by a score of 4-0. Completely agree. Shout out you, Rob. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Yeah, let's just plug some stuff away. If you don't follow these guys here, you guys got to follow them. My guys from the start, Nelson, YouTube channel at Amish Country Mets fan, and his on Twitter's at Amish Country Met. Make sure you subscribe to his YouTube channel. This stream is also streaming to his YouTube channel. So make sure you go follow that, subscribe to that. Hit that like button on his channel as well. I know he's approaching 200 subscribers, so the quicker we can get him there, the better. So go ahead and do that for me. If you're on my page, go over to his channel and hit that subscribe button for him. Also his Twitter and Matt as well. Follow and subscribe to his YouTube. He does have a YouTube. It's at Flushing Sunny 41, and he has his Twitter page as well. Matt, plug in right now your website for your Sunny Days in Flushing. I wanna hear about that.
Yeah, it's New York sports blog. We're at sunnydaysinflushing.com. Yeah, as you can see, thank you for the YouTube and the Twitter handle. I appreciate that. Yeah, so you could find us there. Haven't gotten started with too much. This is the extent of the YouTube that I've done so far, but eventually we'll get into that. And this coming football season, I think we have a couple of guys together want to do like a Sunday morning show, kind of going through the games that day and some betting lines, things like that. So I know you do a Giants portion on your site. Nelson, you touch any football, Nelson, or you're really just Mets?
I'm a football fan, but I don't. My content's all Mets.
Okay. So yeah, no, definitely it would be nice to get together in the fall
Let's
and
do that.
do something like that. That would be great. But yeah, that's us.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm definitely down for that. And yeah, follow Sunny Flushing or sunnydaysinflushing.com, Flushing Sunny 41 on Twitter and YouTube. Go check Matt out as well as Nelson. And obviously you guys are getting tired of me, I know, but follow my Twitter, IG, and YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, a thumbs up if you're watching on my platform. All my handles are at CPNY Sports. You know where to find me, you know where I'll be. Last couple weeks I've been kind of quiet. Just been focusing on some other things. Had a vacation in between. Obviously, it was a holiday weekend back a couple weeks ago as well. So I'm starting to get back into the thing, into the groove of things, so to speak. So it's a little hard when you go away for a week or two to get back into it. And with all the other stuff that life brings at you, that you got going on. So that's where I've been at. But also follow the Interstate Mets report with me and Nelson every Tuesday, streaming every Tuesday at 5 p.m. and every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on both Nelson's and mine page. It's a Mets day after show. So if you're looking to get some series recaps, if you're looking to get some series previews, if you're looking to get deadline talk, anything else in between, we're going to be talking about the Mets 24/7, even if they're out of contention, even if they are sellers, we're going to be talking about it. We do not stop talking about the Mets, even when they're out of contention, even when they are sellers at the deadline. We look forward ahead because, like I said, and like Matt said, we're looking on to 2024 at this point, and we have stuff to say about 2024 because whatever the Mets do, regardless if they're in it to win it this year or not, this is all going to transpire over to 2024. So if you want to just delve into the realm of that, follow Interstate Mets on Twitter, and then also subscribe to both of our YouTubes for those live streams as well. But yeah, like I said, let's get into today's game. Um, Listen, the Mets drop game 3. It was a great opportunity to sweep the White Sox. It was a much needed sweep, in my opinion. I don't even think that's an opinion anymore. I think that was a fact. But the Mets dropped this game 6-2 in Quintana's season debut. Quintana had a great debut, in my opinion. Gave up 2 earned runs, if I'm not mistaken. I think over 5 innings. The game got out of hand once our good old friend Drew Smith got into the game with the help of Pete Alonso's error. Drew Smith got smacked around a little bit. Jeff McNeil looked like really lost in the outfield. Didn't really look like he knew he was doing out there in right field. Obviously, there was the mid-game switch with Tommy Pham being injured. Canna shifted over to left, and I think Jeff McNeil at that point went over to right. Guillaume made a second. You know how the usual rotations go when someone gets hurt in the outfield. Marte obviously landing on the injured list, the IL. Yeah, the offense was lethargic. Omar Narvaez hit his first home run as a Met, but other than that, Pete Alonso, little single to right field, brought in Nimmo for the second run. Just a terrible game. A game that like these games mean something to the Mets, right? Like you win a series against a bad team, against the Chicago White Sox, who've been dealing with what they've been dealing with, but they're a bad team, right? They're going to be selling as well this deadline. To Nelson's point, and I'm going to let Nelson speak here in a second. But if you're 7 games back of a wild card, you cannot afford to just settle with a series win. You have to sweep this series. You have to. It's a necessity. Um, Obviously, with the Phillies losing, they're still 7 games back. But as I've been saying this whole time, it's a race against the deadline, that August 1st deadline, line. So I don't know what's gonna happen. I really am honestly at this point just done trying to guess and predict what's gonna happen with these guys. I'm done trying to predict what the front office is gonna like do, what their mindset is. We'll see here shortly. But Nelson, give me your take on today's game. We're gonna get into the deadline a little bit later. What did you see today? What did you see out of this whole series? Give me some highs, some lows, and we'll start there.
Um, Francisco Alvarez is a beast, and he's our catcher for years to come. Um, Love to see that. Love to see Beatty show some power. Still a little iffy in the field, but hopefully that improves. Lindor is. I feel like the All Star break came at a bad time for him. He was really getting hot, and now he's kind of got to like work back up to it. He did get a big hit the other day. He is drawing some walks, so that's it's a good sign. But I need to see obviously improvement out of him. Fam getting hurt sucks for multiple reasons. I'll get into that and when we get to the deadline talk. Marte, I guess, is on the IL now. Whatever. I mean, it's not like he was doing great anyway. Nimmo is what he is. The team is just whatever. It's hard to get up or down with this team because they've just been the same team, and they show like little signs. They score 11 runs and they still manage to like make it a 1-run game where you're like, why are we even in this position? It's like they find ways to make you like irritated even when they're doing something well. So, I mean, you got Jeff McTantrums every time he freaking makes an out. He's crying like a whiny little baby. I'm tired of it. I know he's not going anywhere, but if I could get him off this team, I'd drive him wherever they want him. I'm just done with Jeff McNeil. I'd be honest, I have never really liked the dude all that much. Yeah, he won a batting title. Good for him. Um, this is now this up and down thing he's got going, whereas 1 year he's good, 1 year he stinks. This year he really stinks. I mean, I don't know. I'm just done. Alonso's horrible. Um, I you would think that this isn't, like you said while we were talking before we started. His track record is pretty decent. You would think this isn't the Pete we're gonna get, but there's that little nagging feeling in the back of my mind, like, is it though? Like, I've seen guys get off to hot starts in their careers and then fall off. Like, I don't know why that would be the case, but other than, I mean, it's a lame excuse, but it's been an excuse for a lot of players this year. That pitch clock, like, is he having that much trouble adjusting to it? He's a guy that likes to like sit there and meditate before an at bat. We saw that last year. Like, he would step out the box and do breathing exercises and this and that. He doesn't have the time to do that anymore. Whether or not that's an issue for him, I don't know. Um, but I don't know. I don't know what his problem is. I just know he stinks, and I really hope he turns it around, because if this is the Pete we're getting going forward, I'll gladly let him walk. To be honest, I'm not paying him hundreds of millions of dollars to be this Pete. Um, so going forward, I definitely need to see him show me something heading into next year, because we're gonna have a decision to make, and if he continues this, I'm a little afraid of what that decision might be.
No, yeah, I completely agree with all the sentiments. We did have that little side discussion before we got on to today's live. Shout out the Back It Up Binge podcast. O's fan here, root for the Mets, crazy season. So would you three try to get rid of Scherzer and Verlander if you could? I think we'll talk a little bit about that during the deadline talk. That is a little bit of a topic of discussion as well. We'll get into that. So hold your horses on that. Appreciate you tuning in, though. Definitely appreciate you tuning in. Maybe Alonso is still hurt and not telling anyone. That's also a possibility. I'm not sure if I'm willing to give him that excuse, but we'll talk a little bit more about Pete Alonso. And Matt, you can say your piece on Pete Alonso, because I think his body of work, his first, 3 seasons in majors really does tell a bigger story than people will want to admit on Twitter. I think people are very consumed about the past maybe couple months of Pete Alonso. And I completely get it, because he has stunk. I'm not gonna make any excuses for him either. I'm not gonna make excuses for the injury. I'm not gonna make any excuses for anything else for Pete Alonso. He's stunk this season. That's it. That's point blank what it is. But when I look at Pete Alonso, that's easy 40 home run plus guy, borderline 50 home run guy every year. His defense is a little bit of a different story. Should he be an everyday DH, and a different guy goes out there in the field? He shows some flashes of brilliance in front of the first base side, at first base, but other times it just looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. Today was one of them. His at bats recently surely are carrying over into the field now. His error today was pure mental error. Like it's just like a ball that needs to be routinely fielded. And that was one right there. So we'll get into all that. We'll get into Scherzer Verlander here soon. But I appreciate you all tuning in. Definitely the Back It Up Binge podcast. Appreciate you tuning in. Stevie Max says, just got here. You guys see Vientos get called up. I think Nelson and I were talking about that. We were talking about the Syracuse Mets tweeting out there was a lineup graphic change. Vientos is likely on his way to New York from what we understand and what all indicators are pointing to. Glad to see him get this opportunity. I don't think he should have been sent back down. I think he needs his fair shake, and maybe this is the sign of maybe Vientos getting more consistent playing time when he gets called back up for the second time. That's what we can hope. But shout out Stevie Mac 23 for also joining in, a regular listener as well. So definitely appreciate you, Matt. Tell me everything that you think about this White Sox series that you've seen. Give me some positives. Give me some negatives. Give me your take. I want to hear it, because we saw this is obviously a series win. Obviously, there was a little bit of controversy with the Trevor Gott decision to put him in when you had Robertson sitting for so long. In that 2-1, or what was it? Was it the 2-1 win? No, it wasn't a 2-1 win. It
That
was
was the game one. I think that was game one. That was right before extra innings, I think. Something like
yeah, it
that.
was right before the extra innings. Whatever the score was in that game, that was some controversy about Buck Showalter bringing in Trevor Gott instead of going to Rayleigh or Robertson right off
Right.
the bat. And then obviously the debacle of the 11-10 game, where it was looking like it was going to be a wash. What do you know? Mr. Gott comes back up there and kind of just, I'm not going to say it. He doesn't get the job done. But yeah, let me hear your ups, downs. What do you think about this White Sox series? And I want to ask you, Matt, can it transfer over to the Red Sox series? Does it mean anything anymore to you? Or are you sort of just at a point where
I
it's a
I think
wash? Doesn't matter what happens. So I'll let you take the floor. I'm going to be off camera here for 1 second and I'll be right back. But take the floor.
I think barring any like 10-game run, right? Like, because that's ultimately what for them to turn this around, they need to go on, they need to like set a franchise record of like 15 wins, or I don't know what the franchise record is, but like that's basically what they need to do. So do I think that any of this carries into Boston? Like, I don't know. I mean, Nelson, I feel like you're kind of in this. I mean, Chris isn't here, but I feel like we're kind of all in the same boat of like the team is just inconsistent. So like expecting that like, oh, they did something great yesterday, and maybe I mean it just hasn't been like that. So I'm not like you, Nelson. I'm not getting my hopes up. Um, I think we kind of saw a lot of what we've been seeing all year, like solid offense, inconsistent pitching, inconsistent bullpen. What was nice today was seeing Quintana go 5 innings. I was at work, so I wasn't able to see how he gave up the 2 runs. Was it a 2-run homer?
No, they just got to him the first inning, got a couple blue hits. It wasn't anything. The first inning, especially, wasn't anything like
Right.
to write home about. He just gave up some blue hits that just got over guys' heads. I think the second inning he did this. They hit him around a little bit as well, but it was nothing crazy. He pitched all right. He did what he needed to do for his first start back.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, he's a career like 3, 4, 5 guy. So if that's kind of what we're getting out of him, I mean, that's fine. Like ultimately, if we had a rotation full of 3, 4, 5 guys this year, we'd probably be like a 500 team. Because typically 3, 4, 5 guys go 6 innings, they give up 2 runs, and they hand it off to the bullpen, right? Like so ultimately, if that's what we get out of Quintana for the rest of this year and looking forward into 2024, if that's what we get out of him next year, I can't complain about that, especially for what we're paying him. Going back to what we were talking about before with kind of the core of this team, Lindor, Alonso, McNeil, and I think that like Lindor, Alonso, I don't think is going to be a guy that the franchise lets walk, regardless of how this season goes, right? Like he's a fan favorite. You walk around the stadium, his jersey is everywhere. He's all over the billboards. They put him in every commercial. Like he's a guy that's always going to be, at least his next contract, I think will be here. I think that we kind of have this like, because we're in New York, because we see Aaron Judge every day, because Alonso had that year, his rookie season, where he won Rookie of the Year, he put 53 bombs over the fence. I think we have this idea of him in that he's got to be Superman. Like every time he comes up to the plate, he's got to knock one out. And that's not really what he is. And that's okay. Like that's perfectly okay. Right? Like this guy's body of work, he's a career like 265 hitter. He's going to hit close to 100 RBIs. He's going to put close to 40 balls, give or take, right? He's going to have his years where he hits in the 50s. He's going to have his years where he hits 38, 39. That's fine, right? Like not long ago, that was Mike Piazza. And we all loved Mike Piazza, right? And by the time Mike got to us, like a few years into that deal, he really couldn't catch anymore. But we didn't have a DH, so that's what he was. I think what we get hit by is this like recency bias. And it's the same way that people react to Lindor. Like beginning of the season, Lindor's struggling. Like this is his third year here. We know that the guy starts off slow. We know that the power numbers are going to be there. We know that it's Gold Glove defense behind him. We know that like that relationship he's got with Edwin Diaz. I don't know what it is, but every time he's behind Diaz, like Diaz puts on the Superman cape and he feels invincible. So I think that we look at these guys sometimes like they have to save us, right? Like Lindor wasn't brought here to save the franchise. He wasn't brought here to be a leader. And the same thing with Alonso. He wasn't called up because he was a leader or, He wasn't called up because we needed another Mike Piazza. He was called up because there was, Dom Smith was hurt. They kind of forced him in, and it worked out. So, like, I think those guys are our core guys. I would give Alonso. I don't know what kind of money he's going to make, and this year is definitely going to really affect that, which may kind of work out to our benefit, right? Because if he had a year where he hit 300 and he put 57 balls over the fence, like, you're probably looking at re-signing him this offseason and paying him $36 million a year. Like, after this season that he just had, yeah, maybe that number probably comes down a little if they decide to re-sign him now. So I think that too often we get too, like, hyper focused on the guys that are A, making a ton of money, or B, the media darlings. And I think, like, you need a unit. Like, there's 9 guys on the field. You need all 9 to produce. The team last year won 101 games because every guy in that lineup was either getting a hit or finding a way to get on base. We talk about it. I mean, we've talked about it in every post game. It's their approach. Their approach is awful this year. Every guy that steps up to the plate wants to hit a 5-run home run, as opposed to last year. I mean, that the catalyst of this offense was Starling Marte. And the guy didn't hit many home runs, but he stole bases. He got his walks. He got hit by a pitch. He hit his singles. He did whatever possible to elevate this team. So I think, going into this offseason, you got to really take a look at your depth. I think you have to take a look at the philosophy of the team. Like, the whole order doesn't go from producing to not producing, and then you're going to sit here and tell me, like, well, it's all on the players. I don't know that it's all on the players. Like, how did everyone go from being really good to really bad? That doesn't make sense. And none of us here are scouts, but, like, anyone, a monkey watching the TV could tell you that these guys are swinging out of their shoes every single time, and that's not going to win you anything. So I think going forward, I think you still want to keep the core here. All these core guys, you want to keep them here. And, like, if we really are out of it, like we are, like, if we're going to start selling guys off, start calling these kids up. And I'm sure we'll get into that after. I don't want to step on toes, but, like, I'm tired of hearing that, like, Mauricio's glove isn't ready. That's BS. Show me that it's not ready. Same thing with Vientos. Like, if that's true, that we're calling up Vientos, then, like, what are we doing with Daniel Vogelback? Like, at this point, right? Like, we've gone through the All-Star break. I know that Vientos is getting called up because someone's hurt, but, like, I don't know. And if you're going to end, by God, if you are going to trade Vientos, that is a bonehead decision to call him up, because he could only hurt his stock. Like, he could literally hit a home run every day from here to the deadline, and it's not going to help his cause because of what we've seen before. So if the plan is to trade him, calling him up was an awful decision. If the plan is not to trade him and to make him a part of this, then good decision.
Yeah, and that was so. I'll start off by this comment right here. MTA Prodigy says Drew Smith was not good at all today. Drew Smith sucks. He sucked today. He sucks in general. I don't know what else to say about Drew Smith. I'm done with him. I don't want to see him. He's not a major league pitcher. I'm sorry. He's not. Pete Alonso made that error today, and I completely get it. It was a lot on Alonso because you start off in the inning with an error. I think Luis Robert steals second base thereafter with no outs at that point. We should have been 1 out, but at that point, Drew Smith needs to hunker down and get some outs, and he just got smacked around. And I'm done seeing Drew Smith. So that's my opinion on Drew Smith.
He's
That's what
starting
I'll
to
say.
remind us of Trevor May. Honestly, that's what he's looking like.
Yeah, I mean,
Mentally, he breaks down.
just no good. Anyways, and I know Nelson, you're not good. You're not high on Drew Smith either. So, um, so yeah. But in regards to Pete Alonso, I mean, I agree with you, Matt. I'm gonna take an agreeing stance with you. Is that I don't want to see Pete Alonso struggling like this. I don't want to see it. I don't think this is the player that he is, and this might end up benefiting the Mets because listen, and I'll say if, because to Nelson's point, you don't know. Like, we don't know if Pete Alonso, if this is the start of some sort of downfall or downward trajectory. Like, no one knows how these players' careers are going to turn out. Nobody knows that. Nobody can tell the future. But if we go off of Pete Alonso's first 3 years bodies of work, he's pretty solid. He's a 253 hitter. He's got I think got an 869 OPS, somewhere around there. Don't quote me on that. But he's got pretty solid career stats, right? Even give it into the factor of this year. Freddie Freeman with the Braves is making $27 million a year. Is Pete Alonso going to ask for that kind of money, 27, 28, even to break the first baseman's market? Is he going to ask for that money after a year like this if he continues going on this trend? I don't know. Maybe they can get him at 24, 25, around the Goldschmidt area. I don't know. Maybe. So maybe that might benefit the Mets. Maybe they save a couple $1,000,000. I'm not sure Steve Cohen's really worried about that anyways. But that's my take on Pete Alonso. I'd like to see him a part of the Mets organization going forward. I'm not going to sit here and sort of tell you that he's a bad player because I've seen 3 bad months out of him. I'm not going to do that. So let's just like that's my take on Pete Alonso. Where we go from here, to your point, and keeping the core guys, it's going to be a really it's going to be interesting kind of time because, like I said, we don't know what the front office is thinking. 7 games back of a wild card is in on July 20th. In our minds, it's like, okay, we've seen what the Mets have been contributing. We've seen what the Mets are about. Probably not the year to win, to make a shot, make a run at the World Series. But the front office could be stubborn. I don't know. I think the optics would look bad if you give up on a season 5 games or anything less of a wild card, and they still have a chance to cut it to that with the Red Sox series and whatever else games we got before the deadline. So we will see what happens there. We'll get into the deadline talk here in just a second. I'll let you gentlemen speak your pieces on the deadline, but you're right. I think the sentiment that I personally, from my just viewpoint, want to hammer in is that regardless of what happens this year, next year, the Mets still need to be competitive, and they are still expected to be competitive. And the thing that I've been echoing is like, yes, you take all calls necessary on the guys that, the GMs that are calling for anybody, even Pete Alonso. You take the phone call, you listen to what they're offering, whatnot. And that applies to anybody on the team. Probably the only person that I would say do not trade off this team is probably Francisco Alvarez. That's probably the lone person that I would say I want to see him on the team. Not even Shohei Ohtani. He's not in the Shohei Ohtani package. Like, if the Mets got an opportunity to trade for Shohei Ohtani this season, I'm not putting Francisco Alvarez in that package. I'm declining that. That's the only person, though. That's the only person. But you still need Pete Alonso for next year. You still need Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer next year to compete to where you want to be. Max Scherzer can be a 3 or 4 next year on the rotation, whatever. That's fine with me. But I can't justify, and we're gonna get into that. I'm gonna shut my mouth and I'm gonna let my co-host go because I just been saying this for so long already. I know Nelson, you have as well. Like, we have to remain competitive next year in 2024. And there's different formulas of how you do that. And there's different formulas of how you go about doing that this season. I think everybody knows Robertson, Pham, all those guys should be on the trading block. But also, listen, if you're remaining competitive in 2024, Robertson and Pham are also guys that you'd probably want to supplement on the 2024 roster. You trade them, maybe you get them back in free agency. I don't know. I don't know how that works. But Nelson, I'll let you speak here. Before that, JNY Sports, shout out JNY Sports. Hoping to have JNY Sports here, up here. I think Nelson, you've been talking with him to try to get him up here on one of the Interstate Mets Report shows to get his takes on things. He says, "Great point, Matt. The Mets should call up Mauricio and Vientos ASAP and start them the remainder of the season." And I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's a point that I missed in my little spiel here. If you are convinced that you are sellers at the deadline, as soon as you sell off the pieces you want to sell off, Mauricio, Vientos, Beatty, Alvarez are playing every single day. Every single day. Because to your point, Matt, what is the one knock on Mauricio and why he's not here? Because he doesn't have a position and he makes too many errors at the AAA level. You show me, right? Like you just said, you show the collective fan base that Mauricio can't do that. Bring him up and let's see it. Unless they want to leverage Mauricio in a trade in this offseason, you bring him up and you play him every day. But listen, at this point, I don't know if I can justify trading Ronnie Mauricio. You can say, oh, we got Jet Williams coming up. Oh, we got Colin Houck coming up. That's fine. We got a switch hitter, a power hitter in Ronnie Mauricio. And I guess there's only one DH spot, right? There's only one DH spot on this roster. So if you're talking about Pete Alonso being expendable from first base, he's going to be a DH candidate. You have Vientos is already a DH candidate. I'm not talking about Vogelback. Vogelback's not going to be here next year. Ronnie Mauricio also DH candidate. DH spot is there's only so many DHs you can carry on a team, right? So how do we move forward in an efficient manner at this deadline, Nelson? I want to hear from you. I want to hear your take on it. And listen, I don't think anybody outside of Francisco Alvarez, in my humble opinion, is out of any sort of call. Is any sort of trade call that another GM comes in and inquires about to Billy Epler and Steve Cohen. But first and foremost, if they're 5 games, if they're even 5 or 6 games, do you see them realistically in your mind even becoming sellers during this season? And that's another question within itself. So lots to talk about the trade deadline. Nelson, the floor is yours. I want to hear.
All right. First, I just want to touch on the Pete thing real quick. The thing with Pete and why I don't really lend too much stock into that Lindor Pete comparison. Lindor has a track record of doing what he did. He has a track record of starting slow and then picking it up. And he was still providing great defense, and his power numbers were still there. Everything was there but the average. Pete, what scares me is that this is new to Pete. I've never seen Pete hit 200. Pete's a 250, 260 hitter. Other than his torrid start at the end of the or beginning of the year, yeah, the power numbers are there, but that's because he hit like 20 home runs in a month. So that's what scares me with Pete. Again, I don't think he's going anywhere. I'm just saying I would be very careful about giving that man a long-term contract without in the offseason without him proving he could turn it around. Like if he can show me in August and September that he's back to his old self, then sure, you could talk to him about extending him. If not, I wouldn't extend them. I would just let him play next year and show me what you got. If you're back to being who you are, then fine, I'll give you the money. If you're not, I might have to pump the brakes on making Pete a long-term man. I'm sorry. I'm not going to give Pete a huge contract to hit 200 for me. I'm not. I don't want that guy on my team. You give me 250, even 240 even. I can deal with that. 240, 40 homers, however many RBIs, I can deal with that. I don't want 200 hitting Pete Alonso that strikes out a ton and it just looks lost at the plate. And it's not like he provides great defense either. So that's my point with Pete. As far as the trade deadline, listen, I haven't changed. I think we should be selling. We should sell now. I'm not waiting to see if we win a couple extra games. It's all fool's gold. It doesn't matter if this team gets to 5 games back in the wild card. It's not there's not a piece out there that you're gonna get that's gonna get this team over the hump. They gotta win like man, I forget how many games it was, like 47 some ish games to get
Yeah.
to like
Yeah.
even 89 wins. It's not realistic. I'm sorry, it's not. To me, it's not. And if they prove me wrong, great. I'd be happy to say I'm wrong. I've said that in the past and I'll say it again. I just don't believe it. I think you should sell what you can. Um, the problem is now it's getting a little trickier because Fam's hurt. He's probably the guy that had the most value other than Robertson. So hopefully it's not serious. If it's not, then maybe you can still get a solid piece for him. Robertson, I would look to trade for sure. Just the usual names. Canna, I guess, has been shown some interest, but again, if other guys are hurt, you might need them in the outfield. Although for me, I still trade them and figure it out with guys from the minors. If we're not going to win anyway, what's the point? Um, to your guys' point, for sure, if we're selling, then Mauricio and Vientos need to be up and they need to play. Um, who Narvaez, I would look to trade him if you can. I know he has a catcher that can hit, has value. Um, Marte's probably not going anywhere. He's hurt anyway. He just makes so much
Verlander,
money, and
Scherzer,
he's just
Quintana.
yeah. Quintana, I just saw that Martino put out an article right after the game that said he might have pitched himself in the teams calling the Mets looking into him. I trade him too if I'm getting offered something solid. Yeah,
But to
trade
me,
him. I don't.
isn't that kind of crazy if you do that though? Because if we trade Quintana, which listen, like if you offer a great package, like on anyone on this roster, not named Sanga or Alvarez, and I'll probably throw Beatty in there too, like, and not to cut you off, Nelson, but to with the Quintana thing, like we do have to be careful of, like, this year's a wash, like we said. Don't worry about this year, but we still have Quintana next year. So, like right now, like Scherzer and Verlander, God knows what we're getting out of them next year because they looked awful this year. Like right now, we have Sanga, and that's it.
But
If you get
Quintana's
Quintana, so if you trade away Quintana,
nothing special though. Quintana's basically Cookie Carrasco from the left hand side. You can replace that.
I
I
agree with
think
that.
Mike
I agree with
Vassell could
Nelson.
step in
where
and replace.
where do
You
you
got
think?
What's
Vassell
that?
coming up. You got Vassell coming
I
up.
was gonna say, I think in theory, Mike Vassell could come in and provide that for you.
But
Whoa,
but do
don't
you
know if my
want to
phone went crazy.
roll into
What's that?
next season thinking, oh, well, hopefully Vassell, like, I want to roll into next season knowing that Vassell and Blade Tidwell are in AAA and they're doing well. And if we need them, we can call them because, like,
Well,
we're
there's
not
also other
really.
free agents that will be available that can replace Quintana's production. I don't think Quintana's a
I
guy that I
agree.
have to
You're not
keep.
really
Like,
paying
I think
Quintana much. You need to keep that in
say
mind.
what now?
You're not paying Quintana a lot of money. So when
Well,
you
I know
get rid
that,
of
but there's other guys you cannot pay a dollar money to replace him and still get a couple solid pieces for him. That's all. That's my point. I just think I'm not in a position to say no, you can't have Quintana because I have to have him next year. I don't think that's the case. Verlander, you can't trade. I saw um, someone say today there's actually a reason you can't trade him. It's that the Mets wouldn't be able to. They can pay off if they wanted to some of next year's money, but the year after, because of the wording in his contract and it not being guaranteed, they're not allowed to pay any of that money. So I don't think a team's going to want him regardless. It's too much money. It's too complicated. Scherzer, in theory, you could. I don't think it's
It's
going to
not,
happen. I think they
it's not
ride
happening.
out the season with both of them. Yeah, I think they ride out the season with both of them. Granted, like I said, I'm listening to everything. So if I'm blown away by a deal, then Max is on the table. I have to weigh whether or not that's like
No, I agree with that. I agree
you
with
get
that. But
enough
in
value.
my yeah. No, I agree with that.
Yeah,
But in my opinion, those three guys, Verlander, Scherzer, and Senga, are going to be our top three next year too, just by default, in my opinion.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
feel like
can
that's the case.
yeah, and so Quintana and Carrasco, dude, you can if if trading Quintana this year gives us any sort of valuable prospects in return, I'm listening to it because you can replace the 4-5 of a rotation through free agency and if you have to calling up Vassell at any point in time. So I'm completely with
Oh,
you, Nelson. That's my stance
not
on it.
only
But those
that,
three guys remain the same.
but if say you keep them three, and we really are, I mean, the Otani thing is a pie in the sky. You never know what's going to happen. But if we do sign him, then you've got a four-man rotation of Otani, Verlander, Senga, and Scherzer. Like,
Or even the other Japanese guy.
Yeah, that other Japanese guy that they're interested. So there's guys out there.
I don't think he's available till
It
like
can work itself out.
2027.
Oh, really?
The
Okay.
guy that they went and looked, or 2025 or something. I don't think he's I could be wrong. I was listening about a Japanese.
I thought I thought they were able to sign him next year, but I don't know.
I could be wrong. I was listening to I think WFA somewhere that when Epler was over in Japan and he was scouting that guy, there was a few guys being scouted, and one of the guys they were talking about wasn't available until 2026. He's a young kid. The kid they were talking about was a young kid. He was like 21.
He's 24.
Okay, so we're talking about someone new. Okay, then my bad. The only I think you have to be totally open for business. I think everyone talking about trading Verlander and Scherzer, like, yeah, obviously we would love to, but that's probably not going to happen because like you said, those contracts are huge. Both of them have a no trade clause, so it's not something that you could just do. And like, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not trading those guys away to pay out their contract to play for someone else. Like unless you're giving me like great prospects that are truly like really have promise. Like I don't want some 20-year-old for these guys. Like I want, if you're trading those guys away, I want someone that at the very least, like the guy's in AA, AAA, and you know he's going to be a solid player, regardless of position. I don't care what position. Like if you're telling me, yeah, this guy's got like, he doesn't have the highest ceiling, but he's got a high floor, fine, I'll buy that. But like, I'm not trading away regardless of how bad they are. I'll let them rot here. Like I'd literally rather Steve just not play them and just pay out those contracts, honestly. Because like for me, I mean, seriously, if you're going to send me back a sack of potatoes and I have to pay out the $43 million next year,
yeah,
that's bonkers.
I agree.
If you're something decent,
if I could finish, I wouldn't trade. Obviously, you're going to get Scherzer. The only way you trade Scherzer is if it's worth it prospect wise. You don't give him away just for the hell of it. Like that's stupid. Like I said, Verlander, I don't think either one of them are going anywhere. But everybody else, I've said it, and I'm going to keep saying it. They're all on the table. We should be making the phone calls now. There's no reason to wait for see what happens in the Red Sox series. This is stupid. Like this team has showed you time and time again what they are. Just pull the plug. That's where I'm at with it. And I know it's probably not going to happen. And they're probably just to piss me off. They'll go into the Red Sox series and freaking win 2 out of 3 or sweep them, and they'll be in a freaking 4 or 5 games out and decide that they're going to buy. I think it's stupid if they do that, but it's the Mets, so I know that it's in their MO to tease the hell out of people. So we'll see.
No, I mean, I completely agree with you, Nelson. I think that is definitely plausible that the Mets are 4 or 5 games. I think it's plausible they're 4 games out by the trade deadline. And I think it's plausible we see them try to buy bullpen help to try to salvage the season. Because listen, I said this from the beginning. The optics of it, and I think it's strictly because of the optics of it. Because if you didn't have the highest payroll in baseball right now, I think honestly the Mets would be sellers already, to be honest with you. But because this is the highest payroll in baseball, because of a lot of revolving doors around behind closed scenes, behind closed doors, who knows? Who knows what's going on? But anyways, listen, I said that from the start. I really didn't think they were going to be sellers months ago. I literally said that, and they still haven't proven to be. I don't think that Eduardo Escobar trade wasn't a sign of them being starters or sellers. It was just a sign of them wanting to move Beatty to be a starter. But we'll see. The guy Yoshinobu Yamamoto is a free agent as well. He's able to be signed. this coming year, Matt, to your point. But got a couple comments in here before you go, Matt. President of operations that Cohen is trying to hire will clean house. I wouldn't keep this team. Staying competitive is kicking the can down the road. I agree. I think there's a fine line. I think there's a line where you can do both, but I agree with the sentiment of this comment. I will say that, and that's where I'll leave it at. Stevie Mack says Jared Kalenic might have just helped us big time fracturing his foot. I saw that he kicked a trash can, he fractured his foot. They're already looking into Canna, so hopefully Canna's out of here because I'm not a big fan of Canna. Gentlemen, last thoughts before we end this live stream. I know we've been going on here for a little bit. Matt, I'll let you start off. Nelson, right after that, you can go ahead and give your final thoughts, and then we'll close that out here. All right.
Yeah, no. To what are Nelson? I'm sorry I interrupted you. I apologize. You were coming in and out, so there was a break. I thought that you were done, but I apologize. I don't mean that you or you either one of you guys was saying, oh, just trade Verlander, just trade Scherzer. Like I'm kind of just going with the sentiment that I keep seeing on Twitter. But that kills me because I had a really good point and now I just forgot it. No, I think that no matter what happens, I think they were prepared to sell regardless. Like I think the only difference, Nelson, in your point of like selling right now, I think you want to wait till the deadline because if you're going to do it, whether you trade him now or you trade him in a week, like it doesn't matter anyway because the season's not going anywhere. And just like the Mets are hypothetically trying to figure out if they're going to buy or they're going to sell, other teams that are going to be buying at the deadline are also doing the same thing. So like if someone's breaking down the door to get like Mark Canha or anybody on this roster, absolutely. You make that trade because you're selling. That's what's going on. Like we're 7 games out. Like the best that could happen, even if we like win out to the deadline, we're still out of a playoff spot. So I agree with you, Nelson. Like they have to be in sell mode 100%. But I don't think it's wise. And I think if you listen to a lot of like executives talk about this, they'll all always say this, and they say the same thing in the NFL too. Like if you're a fringe kind of like buy or sell, you wait to the deadline regardless because that's when you could drive the leverage up. If you're the first person to offload someone, and like how do you know that the next team wasn't willing to pay a higher price to get someone? You know, so like that's my whole feeling on it. Is I'm okay with selling, but I would just rather wait essentially till a couple days before the deadline or at the deadline itself. So I know that we got the most for whatever we gave up. You know, and that's anyone on this roster. And you know, I'm not like emotionally attached or anything to Quintana or any of these guys. If you have a good deal in place for Quintana, you pull that trigger. But my only counter to that is he's a guy you paid 13 this year. You're paying 13 for him next year. Odds are it's going to be a little hard to find a number 4, 5 starter for less than that amount of money. So that's just something which obviously they're having all these conversations anyway. But I just don't want to sell this year at the expense of next year. But you know, if Steve is really true to his word and that salaries don't matter, and you know, this is all like fun coupons, right? That's what Jordan Belfort said in Wolf of Wall Street, right? If this is all just like monopoly money to him, then sell and buy again next year. Who cares? And the one thing that's in our favor throughout this process is that Steve already said he's willing to eat money this year. Like money, he already looked at it as a sunk cost. Salaries this year are a sunk cost. In his mind, it was money already spent. So that's one thing that really does help us is that we're not negotiating with other teams. Like when we trade away Pham, like most teams, when they trade away a guy like Pham, they tell the team that's buying, like, hey, you're taking on the rest of that deal. What's nice about us is we're saying, no, like we'll pay it out. When we trade away Robertson, we'll pay it out. when we trade away Ottavino and all these other guys, no, that's money spent. So we'll pay out the rest of the year. That's great because now instead of maybe when you're going back and forth about, well, I want your number 5 prospect. Well, I only want to give you my number 7. Well, hey, I'm willing to take on the rest of this deal. Like for some owners, like if you're the Cincinnati Reds or you're the Seattle Mariners and your owners don't really want to spend money, but they really need a Tommy Pham or they really need a Jose Quintana, believe it or not, as stupid as that sounds, like that's kind of a driving factor to maybe get that number 5 guy that you wanted, which is nice. That's a silver lining out of all of this. So
Yeah, and they're just telling us that Steve Cohen's the problem. But anyways, Nelson, go ahead.
No, I actually agree with almost everything Matt said, and the only reason I'm saying sell now, it's not. I agree with you. I think they should wait for the best offers and whatnot. Only reason I'm saying it is because I don't want them to win a few games and talk themselves into buying. That's the only reason. I just don't think that we're in a position that buying is smart. And the reason I'm okay with selling, and no, I also don't want to just give up on next year. That Steve Cohen is the reason I'm okay with the idea of selling, and I believe we will be still competing next year because I think he's still going to spend whatever it takes to improve the roster, and he's not gonna just punt on next season. It's just not in him to do that. So I'm not afraid of that. I just want to get as many. I want to stock the cupboards with as many pieces as possible that can help us build for not only next year but future years. I want that Dodgers system that you can pull off a trade for Scherzer and Turner and still have a whole freaking ton of prospects waiting in the wings. Like that's what I want to be able to do. Right now, we're not really in a position where we can pull off a major trade because then we have nothing left. So that's my goal going into next season, and that's what I want to see. Like this season, I mean, I'd love to. Obviously, we all want to see us win. If we went on a miracle run, none of us are going to complain. Like we're going to be happy about it. But um, yeah, but just if that's not going to happen, then I'm just all about getting ready for next year. We'll still find things to talk about. We'll still figure things out. But yeah, man, it sucks. It sucks that we're in this position. Like nobody wanted to be here. But to me, it's let's look to 2024 and see what happens next.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I'm glad that I got you guys' insight here. This is why I bring you guys on. This is why we have this. Like, we're always talking consistently. This is a product that we all bring together. We're all here in it for the same reason, talking about this team through the ups and the downs, and hopefully we got some more ups, whether it's this season or the next. Like I said, and like we all said today, like regardless of what happens this season, 2024 is going to be a season where we still expect the Mets to be World Series contenders, and that's a testament to Steve Cohen. I think we can all agree on that too. So let's just see what happens. Let's just see what happens. We got what 11 days till the trade deadline. We'll see what happens. We got the Red Sox coming up next. We just coming fresh off a White Sox series win. See what they do against the Red Sox. 7 games out still of the wild card. The Back It Up Binge podcast. Appreciate you. Great job, guys. Good luck, Mets. Go Orioles tonight in Tampa. I'm also rooting for the Orioles. I know that AL East is a little bit of a close division right now. Yankees are last. I think Red Sox are fourth. And then Blue Jays third. Orioles are chasing Tampa. I think they're only 2.5 out last time I checked. I could be wrong on that, but it's 2.5 out.
Actually,
So
the
that's a great
Orioles are in
division to
first now.
monitor. Oh, they're in first
The
now.
Orioles are in
Oh,
first.
what? Last time I checked, they were 2.5 out. Good for them. Orioles are making some news, so good for them. They did turn around. It's gonna be a little bit harder to go through a rebuild like the Orioles did for any team looking to do so now, with the new draft rules. But I respect what the Orioles have done in their rebuild and how quick it's come to fruition. But listen, I'm gonna wrap this post game up. I definitely appreciate my guys Nelson and Matt coming on. As always, make sure you follow the guys. Subscribe to Nelson's YouTube. It's at Amish Country Mets fan. Go search in the you'll find him. He's almost at 200 subscribers. Go get him to that point. Follow him on Twitter at Amish Country Met. Make sure you do that. Got some good content out. All of his Buck Showalter impersonations, all of his farm animals that he's got going over there. His draft coverage was great. If you're looking to learn a little bit more about the Mets draft prospects that they just drafted in 2023, go look at his videos. He's got all that up. Follow Matt as well. Not only on YouTube and Twitter, which is at Flushing Sunny 41, but his blog website is Sunny Days in Flushing, SUNNY daysinflushing.com. Go check his blog out. Go hit him up there on the website. I hope we can see some more content on YouTube coming out from you. I know you're a busy guy, as am I. But I think you got some good camera presence. We appreciate you coming on these post games as well, including you on that. So I want to do more of these post games as well. I know we did a lot of that, in the earlier months before we started the Interstate Mets report with Nelson and I. But hopefully, we can get you on some more post games as well, Matt. So I appreciate you coming on. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to my YouTube at CPNY Sports all across the board. That's my handle. That's where you'll find me. Obviously, drop a like, hit the subscribe button, comment your thoughts if you haven't commented already. I appreciate everybody in the comment section today commenting, including the Back It Up Binge podcast. O's in Tampa are tied currently. I appreciate everyone commenting. If you haven't followed the new Mets Day After show between Nelson and I, we co-host that. It's at Interstate Mets on Twitter. It's also streaming Tuesdays at 5 p.m. and Fridays at 4 p.m. on our YouTube channel. So subscribe to both of our YouTube channels. Make sure you go ahead and do that. But listen, guys, this has been a good episode. White Sox series win. We'll see what the Mets do at the trade deadline. Fastly approaching. We got the Red Sox coming up next. That's all I got for today. We got to wrap it up. But as always, I appreciate you guys, Nelson and Matt. And as always, like we always say, following up these post games. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets. Free Ronnie. Support you, David.
Free Ronnie. Free Ronnie. That's right. See y'all later.